Thanks, Fabienne. So good evening, good morning to everyone, or good midday, depending on where you are in the world. It's really cool to have this. This time it's really like a global seminar, I would say. Welcome to Jeff Mancera, who agreed to giving a talk about Astronieae today, so giving us insights about his research on Asian melastomes, which is really cool because we haven't had that many old world tropics talks yet. Jeff is currently teaching at the University of Philippines, Manila, where he also got his bachelor's degree from in 2013. And then he went to the Cal Academy in San Francisco to work with Frank Almeida on reinvestigating the diversity of Astronieae, so Melastomaceae tribe. And the crazy thing is, and I guess this applies to many of the Asian melastome groups, that when Jeff started working on Astronieae, the last time this tribe had been studied in Asia was 30 years ago. And these huge lacks of sort of state data, be it, I mean, from my perspective, I often look at natural history data, these gaps are huge, but then also obviously the taxonomic and systematic treatments, there's still so much work to do. And I was lucky to go to Cal Academy 2-3 weeks ago, and there all over the place I saw Jeff's sort of annotations and then like his name that he had been looking at these and these specimens. So yes, he really did the work. Yeah, and Jeff is continuing to work on melastomes in collaboration with Darren Pennis and Peter Fritsch right now, who are leading expeditions to the Philippines they started in 2014. And as we just discussed, let's hope that yeah, more expeditions will be possible soon and that Jeffrey can really get back to the field if conditions with COVID improve. And now, yeah, I say, Jeffrey, the floor is yours. The screen is already shared. We're excited to listen to your seminar. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Agnes. I know you are all excited, but again, please keep your expectations low, okay? And also about the, oh my God, the annotation labels at Cal Academy. I think that's what you just mentioned, Agnes. I hope I actually was able to put scientific names on the annotation labels and not just my name. But yeah, thank you so much.
No, sorry, of course. Both your
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Agnes and Fabian, again for this invitation. And for waiting. I think the invitation was way back in July, but I really had to take a leave from work back then. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been a while. I just told Fabian earlier, it's been a while since I actually talked about Astronieae, about melastomes in general. Things haven't really been looking good, unfortunately, here in Manila. It's getting better. Fortunately, but still a long way to go since the pandemic started. But yeah, so this actually refuels my the fire of a melastomatologist in me. So this really means a lot. Like this invitation really means a lot. So thank you so much, Agnes and Fabian. All right. So without further ado, so I know. The seminar series has been going on for over a year already. Wow. And obviously, most of the seminars you've heard were all about, were mostly about the neotropical melastomes. And I mean, you know, like that's understandable, especially because of the diversity. But also, unfortunately, it's because of a big gap in our knowledge on paleotropical melastomes, especially Asian tropical melastomes in particular. So hopefully this presentation will kind of like bring you in a journey to the seas, like to the islands of the Malaysian archipelago. So yeah, welcome to Asian Melastomes Matter, a quick maneuver to the Malay archipelago with the, specifically with the Astronieae. So, but before I officially start, I usually do this in my talks, just really to honor those botanists who came before us. I really stand on the shoulders of these great botanists of the Malay archipelago. First, Dr. Benito Tan, Filipino bryologist who worked in National University of Singapore and also at UC Berkeley for a very long time. He's the reason behind the partnership, the first partnership between Cal Academy and our institutions here in the Philippines, and which essentially, like started the expeditions in southern Philippines since 2011, then 2014, then 2015, and then the newest NSF expedition since 2018. So unfortunately, Dr. Benito and even James Maxwell and Jan Fitzveldkamp didn't really make it before I get to even finish my master's thesis. But yeah, I was doing the work with Dr. Benito Tan, especially in the field in the Philippines back then. So this talk is really for him. And James Maxwell and Jan Fitzveldkamp were the last taxonomists of the Astronieae. So the latest taxonomic treatment in 1990s was authored by these great botanists, James Maxwell from Chiang Mai University in Thailand, and Jan Fitzveldkamp is from Leiden University in the Netherlands. So yeah, definitely this talk is not going to be possible without the great work that James Maxwell and Jeff Veldkamp did. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to even share my findings with them, but yeah, continuing this work definitely is inspired by James Maxwell and Jeff Veldkamp's efforts. So, and of course, I mean, it's not gonna be possible at all without this huge collaboration between melastome taxonomists from, initially from the New World and our institutions here in the Philippines. So I thank Dr. Victor Amoroso right here in the far, on the upper left. He is a pteridologist from Mindanao, a pillar of Philippine botany. He's the main collaborator of Darren Penny's and Peter Freach now from the NSF expeditions. Dr. Victor Amoros is from Central Mindanao University and Center for Biodiversity Research and Extension in Mindanao, two of the institutions that we've all been working with for the past 7 years already. Yeah, so definitely I thank my master's advisor, Frank, no other than Frank Almeida. I'm not sure if he can make it to today, but that's fine because I know it's too early there, and he knows a lot of this already. But yeah, I really miss Frank. All of the experiences, feeling at home in the Bay Area was because of Frank. So I really owe a lot to him. So also, of course, I owe a lot to Darren Pennies and Peter Fritsch, my mentors in the field in many expeditions since 2014 in Southern Philippines. But also, definitely it's not just these people, but the community of plant taxonomists in Southern Philippines, specifically in Mindanao Island, and our friends from California Academy of Sciences definitely contributed a lot to this work. I don't know so just to mention some familiar faces here. I'm not sure if Peter Quakenbush, the Medinilla expert, is here with us, but he's right there behind Darren. That's Jim Shivak, bryologist from Cal Academy. And then Gordon McPherson, I'm sure you know him from Missouri Botanical Garden. They've been with us. They were with us in the 2019 expedition. But yeah, so yeah, I really owe this talk to these great people. And just really want to show you, it's not just all about plants and the people, but definitely the fun, exploring the islands of the Philippines, exploring cultures actually in many parts of the country. I don't know if Darren and Peter know this, but it was actually this particular endeavor was really paved the way to my first ever field work in plant systematics. So this really means a lot. My first ever flight, even like like plane travel, even in the country. So that's how big this endeavor was for me. So yeah, I really treasure all the memories. Preparing for this talk really took me on a nostalgic kind of like ride in my like browsing my folders. I really miss these people. Of course, you know, I'm exploring different cultures in southern Philippines. So riding motorbikes for half an hour to an hour in mountains as high as 1,500 meters above sea level. Riding the motorella. It's a small kind of like tricycle that's unique to Mindanao Island. Eating a lot of exotic food, of course. You have frogs over there in the field. So yeah, definitely this entire work won't be possible without really support from this huge community of Filipino plant taxonomists right here on the right. So I really thank them a lot. So for today, it's just really gonna be 3 questions, to be honest. So what are we missing out on with this gap in knowledge on Asian tropical melastomes? Secondly, what else do we need to catch up on? And then finally, how do we move forward from there? So in this photo, you can actually see it's supposed to be a GIF, but I don't. I'm not sure if it actually plays. I don't think it plays on Canva, unfortunately. But yeah, so these are screenshots of the GIF that Hall and colleagues produced back in 2002, presenting showing how the islands of the Malay archipelago actually came to their present state now. So as you can see here, the islands are actually mosaic from different origins in many portions of the Pacific millions of years ago. And that contributed a lot to the plant diversity, of course, that we observe in the region. Unfortunately, though, that may also be the reason why knowledge about plants in the region is not yet holistically like final or developed, basically because there's really a lot of factors influencing the current state of diversity of plants in the area, not just biogeography, but definitely climate and a lot more factors. But yeah, so definitely Astronieae is one of those many plant groups that has been shaped, like the diversity in that particular group has been shaped by the peculiarities of that region, the Malay archipelago. I think the beauty with talks like this with folks who already specialize on melastomes is that I get to skip some slides already to introduce how great melastomes are, how cute they are, how beautiful the flowers are, etc. So it's just really showing you how far we've gone already in terms of knowledge. You already know this too. How far we've gone in terms of knowledge in the relationships within the family. Although I think if there is one thing that is a little more constant, that's the fact that the origin or the distribution of many tribes or many clades in the phylogeny of the family essentially are restricted to specific biogeographic regions. And for the Malay archipelago, definitely two clades that consistently are still restricted to the Southeast Asian region, the Southeast Asian tropics, are the Astronieae and the Kibesi. Although, of course, there's gonna be a part in the talk that we're actually going to introduce some more insights into some relationships within the Astronieae that may unfortunately finally take it out of that restricted biogeographic distribution. But so far we know that Astronieae and Kibesi are, or I think Kibesi now with the bigger phylogenetic tree that Darren is creating. I think it's more basal now, or at least sister to the Olisipioideae. But yeah, so still the members of the Kibesi and the Astronieae are so far still restricted to Southeast Asian tropics. And you know, as we all know, a third of the diversity in the entire family can be found in the paleotropics. About 24% are from Asia, but we know little, unfortunately, about that diversity. Now, within the tribe, there has been an attempt already at determining the relationships between the genera. And so in 2013, Darren created this preliminary phylogenetic tree for the tribe. So far, we know that Astronieae, the second biggest genus in the tribe, composed of 59 species, is sister to Beccarianthus with around 21 species. And their clade is sister to the Astronieae, the biggest genus in the tribe, with 67 species. However, we all know now that the Astronieae are sister to a neotropical tribe, that's the Henriettii. Unfortunately, though, the fourth genus in the tribe, the Astrocalyx, is not yet represented in molecular phylogenies. And so we don't know exactly yet where the Astrocalyx comes in the phylogeny of the tribe. But I think Darren is building a huge tree, as we all know, and then a lot more colleagues are building a huge tree of the family. So I think Astrocalyx is incorporated there already. And aside from that, surprisingly, a neotropical genus, the Tasmanianthus, appears to be really closely related to the Astronieae more than its traditional tribe, where it is traditionally classified in the Mariani. So we're all looking forward to the super tree that Darren is creating. But basically, those are the potential genera that comprise the tribe. And their distribution, at least the four traditionally accepted genera, Astronia, Beccarianthus, Astronidium, and Astrocalyx, are traditionally restricted to again, the Southeast Asian region, but actually not just the Malay archipelago, but it extends eastward to New Guinea, the Bismarck archipelago, and to the Pacific Islands, as far east as Society Islands in French Polynesia. It also extends upward to Taiwan. There's one species of Astronia over there, and then there's one species of Astronia in the Nicobar Islands close to India as well. But basically, it's pretty restricted to that part of the Malaysian floristic region. So really, what are we missing out on? Well, we're missing out. in terms of because of this gap in the knowledge of the Astronieae, well, we're missing out on a lot of morphological diversity. Basically, something that's consistent throughout literature and throughout the works that we did in the past years for the Astronieae, is that the characters are pretty much representative of the ancestral states that are found in the family. So you can say that the Astronieae are actually one of the most massive members of the family, being woody, and they can get as high as 30 to 45 meters tall. They can actually get as wide as 67 to 70 centimeters. And so right here beside me, so in this picture I'm actually showing you, and I feel like this is the picture that was posted in the Zoom registration portal. In this photo, I'm just showing you a branch of the Astrocalyx, but actually I'm beside the tree where that branch was clipped from. And so so in reference to my body, that's how huge the trunk of the Astrocalyx is. And so as you can see here, so that means that throughout all of our expeditions, we couldn't really go to the field without tree climbers. So without tree climbers, like this endeavor on the Astronieae won't even be possible. So you can see our tree climber there reaching out for some tips of the branches of the Astrocalyx. So this is the crown. The rest of the green stuff that you see in this picture is a crown of the Astrocalyx. So that's how lush the foliage is for this particular tree. This is how high Astrocalyx can get. Those are not the leaves of the Astrocalyx. The leaves of the Astrocalyx are over here, but those are a lot of epiphytes that grow on the bark of Astrocalyx. So it's really important in terms of actually maintaining other diversity on its body, which is really cool. Although in many other species of the Astronieae, the woody habit can be presented like this one. It's just very, very, instead of a thick bowl, you just see really a very, very thin trunk, and then it just really spreads upward sympodially. But in this case though, it's for sure the leaves, you'll find the leaves congested on the tips of the branches. So it's either Astronieae would look this big or this thin, but definitely they can get very, very, very high. What else? So yeah, definitely trees, shrubs, and treelets. Those are your Astronieae in terms of habit. So these are not necessarily unifying characters of the Astronieae, but some peculiarities. In the stem, you would see that many of them are really quadrangular, and they're really markedly shaped to the point that in some species they're actually expanded into wings, such as in this species of Astronia, aleita meaning winged. Another peculiar character in the Astronieae, in many, not in all, but in many species of the Astronieae are what we call subnodal warts. So as you can see, right here, you can already see 2 warts per node. And as well as here in an inflorescence branch right here. And I'm not sure if you can actually see some tiny dots right there on the inflorescence branches, but those are essentially warts that are restricted just really below the nodes of either the inflorescence branches or the vegetative branches. So which are really very peculiar. We don't necessarily see for example, like arthropods feeding on them, not necessarily. But yeah, so far we still don't know what those warts actually do, what those warts actually do on the plant. But yeah, really an opportunity to explore in the future. And then many species of the tribe also present modifications along the petiole. So as you can see here, in some species, they present some ligules at the junction of the petiole and the stem. Some actually have very prominent sheathing. They look like they're sheathing, but essentially they're just expansions of the base of the petiole. A very probably the most peculiar petiole modification in the tribe is seen in a species of Astronidium, this one, the species Astronidium miraculum dei. It means God's miracle. So you can actually see some expansions at the base of the petiole this wide. So, and those are essentially called pseudo petioles. Oh, sorry, pseudostipules. I'm so sorry. Pseudostipules in literature. And so yeah, they're essentially just outgrowths, like laminar, extra laminar outgrowths at the base of the petiole. Same as here. This is actually not a leaf, but a pseudostipule of the Astronidium miraculum. So that's how big the pseudostipules can get. Also, some species of Beccarianthus present pockets on the corners of the veins, especially on the abaxial side. In some individuals, those pockets can actually serve as homes to arthropods, including ants. Yeah. So yeah, just really some of the peculiarities in terms of characters on the vegetative organs of the Astronieae. The leaves are typical, I would say, for the family. It is not irregular to see leaves that are bifacial in terms of color. You can actually see very brown abaxial surfaces in many species. The number of veins can range from, specifically secondary veins, can range from 1 pair up to 4 here in Beccarianthus. So these are a species of Astronia, by the way. So this is a species of Beccarianthus. Something that unites the entire tribe, though, is the presence of peltate scales. The reason why they are called lepidode in many literature, specifically the scales are called scutate because of their shapes. They can be as sparse as these scales on these photos, but they can also be very congested on the surface area, like in this photo. In this case, you would commonly see the term furiferaceous in many taxonomic keys of the Astronieae. But basically, those are really just scales that are overlapping. And also in some species of Astronia, like this one, and Beccarianthus, like this one, they are beset with setae. So yeah, so from the stem even up to the inflorescence branches. In Astronia, though, some of the setae you would see them only on the margins of the petiole, some on the abaxial veins as well, but definitely you'll see them a lot in the inflorescence branches. Okay, so now let's move on to the more colorful parts of the talk, where we present the flowers of the Astronieae. So the unifying characters for the reproductive organs of the Astronieae include terminal inflorescence. So definitely you all of the inflorescences of the members of the Astronieae are at the tip of the branch. Now each inflorescence will culminate in a simple dication, like all of them. So that's a unifying character as well. This is a simple dication inflorescence unit of Astrocalyx. Astrocalyx are referring to how star-shaped the calyx lobes actually are. So that's how long the arms of the calyx are. This is Astronia. And then, oh yeah, so definitely all of the flowers are actinomorphic. They're radially symmetrical. The stamens specifically are isomorphic, meaning there's really no difference between the antipetalous and alternipetalous stamens, but the size may actually be a little bit different between the alternipetalous and antipetalous stamens. So they're sub-isometric. Their fruits are all dry capsules. So that's a unifying character for this Astronieae, also one of the, ancestral character states in the family. And then the ovary wall of all flowers are completely fused with the hypanthium. In some flowers, like this in Bicarianthus ickeesii, named after Ickes, an American botanist who went to the Philippines back in the colonial, American colonial era. The hypanthium actually is presented with warts as well, like similar to the warts that are seen on the below the nodes of the inflorescence branches and the and the vegetative branches. So so those are. What else? Oh yeah, so also one peculiar character in the Astronieae is its presentation of androdioecious breeding system. So in Astronia, so definitely all of the flowers are bisexual, except in some species of Astronia, wherein some individuals are bisexual, but some individuals are staminate. Although in many species wherein there are individuals that are staminate, the female reproductive structures can still be seen, although they are obliterated. They're very reduced, and so those are pistilodes. So the staminate flowers can be presented with or without pistilodes. Okay. Other unifying characters in the Astronieae include being two rhymos, meaning there are two slits, and they're longicidal. Compared to a lot of melastome species, Astronieae species dehisce through slits, like longitudinal slits on the anthers, not pores. And the stamens, all of them lack ventral appendage for sure. Although some of them actually may present extensions of the dorsal connective. Also, for sure, all of the species in the Astronieae have basal axile placentation, like these ones. And usually they are ascending, meaning as the flower matures, the placenta actually grows upward, even pushing the roof of the ovary higher. What else? Also, if you examine closely, each placenta essentially ends in two lobes. So each one of these in this photo is actually a placenta with two lobes at the tip. And some seeds surrounding each placenta. Now, this is a dried fruit presenting persistent placentae with two lobes at the tip of the of each ascending placenta. Now, the capsules are all rupturing, except in Astrocalyx, though, wherein you're still gonna see the capsule essentially dehisce along the borders of the locules, but definitely they're not gonna be as ruptured as these capsules from the other genera. So some more peculiarities. The calyx, especially in Astroneae, the biggest genus, can be very diverse in terms of number and in terms of rupturing. So some calyx lobes are irregularly rupturing in many species of Astroneae. Also, a very cool calyx modification is found in Astroneae glabrum, wherein the calyx lobe essentially just pops out of the calyx cup, essentially giving us a calyptra, which is a very, very unique feature in this tribe. I mean, like in this particular species in this tribe, but I think it's also found in many other species in other clades in the family. What else? So many species in this Astronieae definitely have rotate corolla. However, in some species of Becryanthus and some species of Astronieae that are thought to be restricted to New Guinea, the corolla do not necessarily like open up perpendicularly at antheses. So they actually stay erect. And so we call it pseudotubular corolla. Right here is Becryanthus echisii. That's the mature flower already of Becryanthus echisii. So see how close, quote unquote, the corolla are. What else? In some species of Astronieae, the phaci of the anthers actually are not necessarily restricted just to the ventral side of the anther. It can actually extend up to the dorsal side. Like it's bent towards the dorsal side of the anther, even extending up like all the way to the dorsal tip of the stamen in this species of Astronieae, again, Astronieae miraculum day. So you can see here, like the phaci actually extends right here on the ventral and then bends upward, then it extends all throughout like, the length of the dorsal side of the anther. In some anthers of the Astronieae, they're tessellate, meaning they look like cobblestones. So there are segments of the phaci. But whether they open all at the same time or they open individually, it still remains to be explored. Now for the placentae, definitely all of them are basal axial, although in Astronia, the placentae are actually collapsed. So you're not going to be able to see ascending placentae. So yeah, so you can see that the placentae are kind of like just cushion-shaped stuff right here at the bottom of the ovary. Okay, well, that interesting diversity in the tribe essentially led us to reconstructing the phylogeny of the tribe, but based on morphological data. So we gathered as many as 78 taxa of the Astronieae, essentially representing half of the tribe. And then we did macromorphological and morphometric analyses. And we ended up, especially with the stamens, because you know how incredible the diversity of stamens are, especially in Astronieae. That's super cool. And so we came up with as many as 205 macromorphological and morphometric characters to create this super matrix. And then and so when we did that, we found out that aside from the 4 traditionally accepted genera, Becryanthus apparently split into 2, like it is biphyletic. So we found out that this particular clade of Becryanthus has stamens that are not necessarily as reduced as the Becryanthus sensu stricto, and the dorsal prominence is lacking in this particular group of Becryanthus. Also, this particular group of Becryanthus right here at the bottom is restricted just to New Guinea and its surrounding islands. While Becryanthus right here, the Becryanthus sensu stricto, is restricted to Borneo and the Philippines. And well, the westernmost portion of the New Guinea island. Okay. All right, so now we know, at least from this, from the morphological phylogeny that we did, at least we know that there may be at least one additional genus in the tribe, but it's not really a new genus, because through comprehensive literature review, we found out that it was a taxonomist back in the 1900s already found peculiarities in this particular clade, in the members of this particular clade. And so for the longest time too, that particular genus that they gave for that particular group of species that is restricted to New Guinea has been on status genus inquirendum, meaning they don't really know which tribe it really belonged to, until Maxwell and Veldkamp just really merged that genus with Becryanthus. So we don't. So for a century, we didn't know that Bamlera, like the genus Bamlera exists. But hopefully, if this is supported further by molecular evidence, maybe we can resurrect these genus to be an additional genus in the tribe. Among many other peculiar like clades, like in the Astronieae and in the Bamlera clades, because they are definitely, as you can see here, they're not necessarily as supported as the others. So we are thinking that there may actually be some other bigger clades that can be found nested in these genera. But yeah, until we get a molecular phylogeny, maybe it will remain a hypothesis, but a good hypothesis. Okay, so what else are we missing out on aside from morphology? We're missing out on very cool generic boundaries. So in Astronieae is the most widespread. It definitely extends up to the east, as far west as Nicobar Islands, close to India. But the most western it could get is just really New Guinea. Unlike Astronieae, that actually extends up to the French Polynesian islands. Although Astronieae cannot be found in other islands outside New Guinea, to the west. Now, Bicarianthus and Bamlera can be found in central Malay archipelago. Bicarianthus right here, as you can see, can only be found in the Philippines, in some parts of Borneo, and the westernmost tip of New Guinea Island. And then Bamlera can be found, members of the Bamlera clade can be found restricted just to the New Guinea and the surrounding islands. Apologies for the very crude maps. We are working on the point distribution maps of these the members of these genera. So hopefully it will come out very soon. What else are we missing out on? Well, ecological relationships. So remember the pseudotubular corolla of the Bicarianthus echisii? We actually thought that they're still not open in this particular photo, but they are already open. Like they are actually at antheses. And while in Mount Kitanglad Natural Park in Mindanao Island, we actually saw like spider catchers. Probably feeding inside the pseudotubular corolla. So we thought, obviously, most likely it's producing nectar that avians are really fond of. Yeah. So what else? And then, I think the bad thing about having no knowledge in terms of like the pollination syndrome in this particular group is that you need to try a lot of things to test your hypothesis, including actually tasting the flowers themselves. And so before going back to the lab and actually testing them, unfortunately, it's my mentor's idea, no other than Darren Penny's, to actually taste the flowers of another species of Bicarianthus with not necessarily as erect as the corolla in these, but definitely not perpendicular to the flower axis either. And so we thought, and it also has a very, very deep tube, very, very deep calyx tube, very different from the rest of the Astronieae. So probably, we hypothesize that aside from birds, maybe bats with very long tongues can actually, like feed inside whatever is in there in the Bicarianthus calyx tube, like deep calyx tube. Yeah, and you know what? It's actually sweet. So we thought like this avian and bat pollination syndromes are very cool portions of breeding systems that can be explored in the Astronieae, in the tribe. What else? Next we have, okay, so what else are we missing out on? Well, definitely conservation status of these species. Like we are we are losing many of these species way faster than we are rediscovering and discovering new species in the tribe. In a recent paper that I and an ecologist colleague made, we thought of modeling the distribution because there's not a lot of collections, and that's very unfortunate for this tribe. So we tried to model the species distribution of those species that are endemic to the Philippines, especially those that are threatened already. So for example, Astronieae calicina. By the way, there's only one species in this genus, I told you earlier, so it's a monospecific genus, and it's restricted to the Philippines. It is a genus endemic to the Philippines. But unfortunately, according to the 20s, at least according to the 2017 red list, local red list in the Philippines, already considered critically endangered. Also, as Bicarianthus ecesi, the one that you saw a bird feeding on, is already considered vulnerable, as well as Bicarianthus pulcherimus. Astronieae cumingiana is not necessarily, is still widespread. However, it is endemic to the Philippines. So we thought of looking at where else in the Philippines these species could actually thrive, like in terms of bioclimatic factors. And we model, and aside from that, we thought of predicting where they're gonna be several years from now, especially given climate change. And we saw, unfortunately, that suitable niches for the tungao, by the way, is the local name for melastomes in the Philippines. So unfortunately, those suitable niches for these forest species will constrict, and species will be forced to migrate to higher elevations due to warmer temperatures. Although very peculiar that Bicarianthus ecesi, the one that you saw a bird feeding on, it just stays really on the lowlands, and it actually will this one, the Bicarianthus ecesi, will actually proliferate according to the model, which I mean, maybe actually related to how the species is restricted to lowland areas. The Bicarianthus ecesi is one of those species of Astronieae that can be found from 50 to 900 meters above sea level. Most of the species of the Astronieae would be found above 1,000 meters above sea level. Yeah. So what else? Yeah, so now what else do we need to catch up on given those very limited, very limited knowledge on the Astronieae? What else do we need to catch up on? Well, definitely monography of the tribe. Unfortunately, I didn't really have enough time unfortunately to cover all the species that are members of the tribe, to fully document each species. We were able to do some papers, for example, on the very important Philippine endemic monospecific genus, the Astronieae. A very, I would say, a very challenging work. As you can see there, it is really not that easy to go to field work, especially in very remote areas in the country. You really have to deal with a lot of government security forces as well. So yeah, you can actually see me with folks with guns, for example, in the field work. But definitely, that's really just for security reasons. What else? So yeah. Speaking of monography, it is very important in terms of describing many undescribed species in the tribe, including many species of what we want to call Mancera. So apparently, Maxwell and Veldkamp failed to document all of the species of the Bicarianthus that they merged. And so they left some members of the now we're calling Mancera clade unidentified. So when I went to the New York Botanical Garden, by the way, when I went there, I actually saw some specimens of what I believe are actually species of Bamlera that were not even identified by Maxwell and Veldkamp. Like they actually wrote Becarianthus, but that's about it. and true enough, in their 1990 taxonomic treatment, they really apologized that they failed to complete the inventory of Becarianthus species. So we're actually thinking of around like 7 to 9 to even like 12 new species just for that particular clade of Becarianthus that is restricted to New Guinea, which we really want to call the Bamlera clade. What else? Yeah, so definitely herbarium work is very important, but also expeditions, like are very, very important. Getting fresh specimens of these species, getting molecular data, of course, for this huge gap in the family will be great. Right now we are rediscovering some other species that we thought are already extinct. So for example, this is Becarianthus pulcher that was recently seen finally, like after several decades in Borneo. Right here these are not the real colors. I had to change a little bit the colors because they're not published yet, but hopefully they'll come out very soon. But just to show you, like for example, Astronieae calycina, you've seen the monospecific genus and its flowers in the past slides, but all of them were brown, basically because for several decades we just know them from collections, from herbarium collections specifically. But finally, our colleague from Mindanao was able to see the flower at Anthesis in Mindanao. So hopefully the paper about that will come out very soon. Also, our colleague from New Guinea found what I think is actually a member of an undescribed member of the Bamlera clade. It's Tiberius jimbo. So expeditions, but definitely through collaborations, with locals, especially local taxonomists and local communities, really are very important in catching up on our knowledge, especially in this group in the family. Of course, I already told you molecular representation is missing, unfortunately, for this tribe, and many more hopefully tractable clades in the tribe. Like for example, Astronieae in literature actually has a lot of has 2 sections, but we don't know if each is monophyletic. Astronieae actually has some species with varieties, but we're not really sure whether they are just varieties or maybe they can actually be elevated to species rank already. And then definitely Bamlera and Astronieae need a lot of work, basically because we didn't really find very strong support when these clades arose in the phylogenetic tree. But we believe they, like the restriction in terms of biogeography really tells a lot about the common ancestry in this particular group. But whether these two are good genera already, or there may be other genera, like cryptic genera even in these clades, we're not sure yet, basically because of the lack of molecular data. Definitely Tasmanianthus, like how Tasmanianthus is even related to the Astronieae. I think molecular phylogeny by Dr. Pennies is showing that Tasmanianthus is sister to the Astronieae, but how Tasmanianthus, how Tasmanianthus that is endemic to the neotropics is even like the sister to some a tribe that is restricted to Southeast Asia. That's very, very cool to know. So I really look forward to exploring that aspect of the Astronieae phylogeny in the near future. So yeah, what else do we need to catch up on? Definitely. In Southeast Asia, it's not just really the biogeography that's at work. The differences in climate in many subregions of the region may actually delimit boundaries of each genus. So niche conservatism in each genus may actually be explored. This is something that we're already starting to explore with ecologist colleagues. Phenology in the tribe is really unknown. We just know that they flower like all throughout, like many of them flower all throughout the year, but in terms of patterns of flowering, we're not really sure yet. Island biogeography is definitely very interesting, especially in the Malay archipelago. Like if there's a best area in the world to study island biogeography, it's going to be Malay archipelago and the Pacific Islands. So where the Astronieae are thriving. So yeah, there are really a lot of opportunities in terms of research and historical biogeography for this tribe. Finally, so what else do we need to catch up on? Definitely Androdioecious breeding system, which is very peculiar. I mean, not just in the family, but I think in flowering plants, like in general. I think we know a lot about Gynodioecious, but not necessarily about Androdioecious. So that's something that's that needs exploration in the future. Avian and bat pollination syndromes. I know many melastomes are buzz bee pollinated, but yeah, I mean, avian and bat pollination syndromes are really cool to explore. And in many literature that we reviewed, members of the Astronieae were actually recorded by locals to be useful in phytoremediation, forest restoration, and even medicine. So those are also opportunities that can be explored later on. Now, finally, how do we move forward from here? Well, there's a lot of opportunities, like I told you. We just reviewed not just members of the Astronieae, but actually melastomes in the Philippines that are native to the Philippines that are actually medicinal, at least based on field studies. And we actually were able to find patterns in terms of diseases that are treated by members just of Melastomati or just members of the Disocati Isonerili Alliance, for example, which is actually very, very good research opportunity to explore as well. And definitely, a lot of the things that we need to catch up on, those are all opportunities, of course. And then finally, however, though, there's a lot of challenges. This is going to be one of the last slides, don't worry. So there's a lot of challenges. I feel like I'm really a part of the paper that we just released last year on Nature with no other than my mentor, of course, Dr. Darren Pennies, and of course, Peter Quakenbush right here, who's our expert on Medinilla from the Sinorili Disocati Alliance. So one part of the paper that resonated, the paper was about New Guinea flora, by the way, and we were tasked to inventory the melastomes of New Guinea. So one part of the paper that resonates with me a lot, especially since I came back here in the Philippines in 2017, is that part that says how it is really challenging for many local scientists to find, stability in terms of career in plant taxonomy. I know this is, not new. Especially in the tropical region, in the neotropics and the African tropics. But I think it's a lot more disparate when we talk about opportunities really for plant taxonomists in the Southeast Asian region and in New Guinea in the Pacific Islands. So I really think that's where we're actually lagging, training really local taxonomists to focus on flowering plants and definitely focus on melastomes. Fortunately, though, we have colleagues who are trying their very best. Right here, again, Peter Quakenbush is doing a lot of work on Medinilla, specifically Asian Medinilla. Here is Abdul Rohman Kartonegoro from Indonesia. He did the Disocati latest phylogeny. Definitely is does a very big contribution to the reconstruction of the and elucidation of the relationships within the Sonorili Disocati Alliance. Yeah, so finally, takeaways from this very long talk. I apologize for that. I got excited. Again, this is the first time that I talked about Astronieae again in melastomes after a very long while. Well, takeaways from this talk, well, we are missing out on a lot of diversity in terms of morphological and molecular characters when we forget this tribe. And also, because of our lack of knowledge in this tribe, we're missing out on a lot of ecological and biogeographic knowledge as well. We need to catch up on a lot of things, including monography, expeditions, genomics, historical biogeography, explanation of many enigmatic features in the tribe, such as those that I showed you earlier. But even if there's a mountain of challenges, there's a sea as wide as the sea that can be found here in the Malay, in the Malaysian floristic region, a sea of opportunities for research in the tribe. So I think it's just really a matter of expanding like collaborations between. This is a very good opportunity, by the way, to like maintain that collaboration, specifically between melastomatologists and definitely with between our institutions. So yeah, maraming salamat po. That means thank you very much. I hope you're still awake. If you are, you can actually send comments on my talk right here on this Google form. You can actually pull up your phones and scan that QR code, and it's gonna lead you to a Google form where you can really just tell me what you wanna say. My contact links are also there. If you wanna catch me on some academic stuff, I have accounts in ResearchGate and LinkedIn. But if you want to see the more personal side of me, you can definitely add me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, actually everywhere. But yeah, maraming salamat po. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, that ends my talk. I think I'm now ready to answer questions, if any. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That was amazing, Jeffrey. Very well done. It's good that our expectations were high. We were not disappointed.
Thank you so much. You're so kind, Agnes. That is so kind.
I'm sure there are lots of questions.
Oh my God. Okay, well, I think I prepared. Hopefully I prepared enough for this.
So,
all right.
Anybody who wants to ask a question, feel free to either post it on the chat and we can ask him, or you can unmute yourself and interrupt and try to ask a question. So I'm gonna ask first, since I have the microphone right now. So I'm very curious about this Androdiaceae that you mentioned, and so when you have the plants that are staminate, is it every flower in that individual staminate, or is it you get inflorescences with a mix? And yeah, that's the main thing. Or also, if you have a sense that the same individual might be staminate some years and then cynoecious another years.
Yeah, to my knowledge, Androdiaceae in Astronia, it's just restricted in some species of Astronia, is presented by having staminate flowers restricted to having an individual with only staminate flowers, and then another individual with only bisexual flowers. So yeah, I haven't seen any individual that actually has mixed bisexual and staminate flowers, although definitely in an area, an individual that is staminate can actually be seen like very, very close to an individual that is bisexual, that is hermaphroditic. So yeah, I mean, that has bisexual flowers. So yeah, it really is interesting, Androdiaceae. I'm not sure if our colleagues actually have any insights. Definitely feel free to share insights about Androdiaceae. But yeah, it's pretty, and I would say that's a little neat because then we don't really have to like worry about too much, the complicated breeding systems, because we know that individuals definitely will just either be staminate or will just have staminate flowers or bisexual flowers, but definitely there's not going to be any mixture, but which is kind of neat for me. Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Fabian, or if I missed anything, please.
No, that
speak. Thank you. I think somebody raised his hand. I think Vinny
raised his hand.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to meet you,
Hello.
Jeffrey.
Nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah, thank you for your amazing talk. So I have a question on the same subject. I'm really curious about the fruit type on these androdioecious plants, because in Solanum, andromonois is very common, and it's related to fruit size. So the larger the fruit, the higher the strength of the andromonois. And sometimes these plants, they can be functionally androdioecious. So, I would like to hear something about the fruits of these plants. Are they larger than the fruits of the other plants on this group, or I don't know, more higher costs, something like that? Are they different from the other plants?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Vinny. Well, in terms of flower size, again, Androdioices is restricted to the genus Astronia. Astronia actually has the smallest flowers in the tribe. Actually, yeah, I forgot to maybe put some scales, for example, so that I can kind of like relay how small they are. But hold up, yeah. So yeah, I would say so this one, for example, you have like so each bar is 5 millimeters. So that's how small, this is Astronia, by the way. So that's really how small Astronia flowers could be. The biggest Astronia flower, well, actually, yeah. So that's really how small they are. The biggest would be like these Astronia flowers right here. I would say these are the biggest they could get. So I would say, so each bar right here, sorry, I think I missed my scales. But I would say this kind of like thrice the size of this one. This one right here is probably the smallest. That's a very good thought about Androdioice. I would say the species of Astronia that exhibit Androdioice, most of them would definitely have the smallest flowers, like these ones. For example, this Astronia commingiana definitely is Androdioecious species. But the biggest flowers that that Astronia species could get, like these ones right here, this Astronia apoensis, well, CF, and this is Astronia myri, for example. This is Astronia scabrida. Again, the flowers are thrice as big, about thrice as big as this flower. But they are not Androdioecious. I would say Androdioice in Astronia would be a little restricted to the smallest members. Sorry, members of the genus with smallest flowers. But yeah,
and
that's
the
a very
fruits
interesting
as well. The fruits are also smaller.
The fruits will be the same as the flower size. Yeah, I mean, it will get a little bigger,
That's
but
cool.
not necessarily very, very big. Yeah. So yeah, that's a very good
I'm just
relationship.
thinking,
Thanks,
Pretty cool.
jumping in here, Vinny, maybe it's like this thing in Solana, maybe it's because they have fleshy fruits, and then here we always have dry capsular fruits that we don't see this relation. Just thinking that could be an important
Yeah, it could be related to abortion as well. So that's cool. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah,
nice
no problem. I hope I satisfied Vinny's question.
Yeah, there was a question by Darren as well, asking whether the tessellate tiki of some Astronidium could be polysporangiate.
Come on, I hope there's no question that's gonna come from my mentor, Darren Dennis.
Oh well, apparently.
All right, could the tessellate tiki of some Astronidium be polysporangiate? You know what? Yeah, I feel like I wrote that in my thesis. I would say, like, when I examined them, I would say that there's pretty distinct boundary between each couple. I mean, like, like between each segment of the tessellate tiki. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if they are, but it varies too. That's the point. Like, it's not like all of them actually have very distinct segments, like actually separate from one another. In some members of the Astronidium, it's just really superficial. Like you can actually piece the thecae, and you're gonna see that it's just really one longicidal. I mean, it's just really one longitudinal slit. But it's just that the outermost layers of the thecae are like presented as segments. But definitely, for example, I think in uncinato, in Astronidium uncinato tessellatum, definitely referring to the tessellate thecae. Yeah, like the thecae are actually very distinct. The segments of the thecae are actually very distinct from one another. So yeah, I'm not sure if I was able to satisfy Darren's question, but if that's what he means, probably some of them yes, but definitely it will vary, and that's really the sad thing about Astronidium. There's a tremendous like diversity in terms of like stamen features in the Astronieae. So and so, for example, if you take a look back at for example, like the current morphological phylogeny that we have, at least for the tribe, I would say that the diversity in terms of forms in the flowers, be it in the calyx, be it in the corolla, be it in the stamens, and be it in the locules, would be like the diversity would actually be decreasing as you go up the morphological phylogenetic tree. That means that Astronia and Becarianthus would be would have very consistent features in terms of perianth, androecium, gynoecium. But the Astronidium bamlera, definitely there are no consistent features. And I feel like that's also the reason why, if you take a look at this morphological phylogeny, they're not necessarily as supported as Astronia and Becarianthus. So yeah, I mean, I won't be surprised if there's a lot of weird stuff going on in that particular in that base of the phylogenetic tree. I hope I satisfied my mentor's question, which is always challenging. But yeah.
I'm sure you did.
Thanks, Agnes, for being so kind. Okay, I think I see another question, maybe from Renato. Hello, Renato. Oh yeah, well, it's not really a question, but yeah, neotropical multiple are all sporting. Oh, I see. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the tessellate thecae of the Astronieae, and again, tessellate thecae in the Astronieae tribe is just restricted to the species of Astronidium, like to that genus. But yeah, and then when you take a look at the herbarium, unfortunately though, we don't necessarily have like fresh specimens of Astronidium. Like I personally haven't gone to New Guinea. I would love to, like what I'd give to actually explore New Guinea. I mean, we've written a paper about New Guinea, but I haven't really gone to New Guinea personally. But definitely New Guinea melastomes, especially Astroniids from New Guinea and the surrounding islands and the Pacific Islands, definitely really need a lot of work. So hopefully we get to see colorful Astronidium and bamlera flowers in the near future, hopefully. Any more questions?
Yeah, well, I have many questions. It's just that we are like way over time.
Okay.
But I pinned in a very short one on the pollination. So I mean, it's like the Becarianthus. I also discussed this with Darren, that has nectar and is bird pollinated. Makes a lot of sense also because the flowers look like Caribbean Carianthus flowers. But then when you look at Astrocalyx, and like this occurs in some other like polystaminate flowers. Do you have any hypothesis on what pollinates this? I mean, I would think maybe it's a very generalistic pollination system, but I don't have.
For the Astrocalyx?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would agree with you. Sorry, let me just take a look just to show the flower, like the polystaminate flower of of Astrocalyx. But yeah, I would say it's not. I would say it won't be as specific to a particular pollinator as it could be with Astronia and Becarianthus. Another actually a local plant taxonomist by
there you have one.
Oh, actually, yeah. Oh, yeah, right here.
They use
but
them all. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So, a local plant taxonomist by the person of Edwino Fernando. He's a great pillar of Philippine botany. Also raised that question to me when I presented in a local symposium. He's a big scholar of Philippine trees, and so he also finds it very, very peculiar for a huge tree like that to actually have these like elaborate and again like Pliostemonus flower. So when he asked me that, yeah, that was also my answer. It may not be as restricted to a particular pollinator as it would be with Astronia and Becorianthus. Although, and I think it really needs a lot of work, like in terms of like
field work, which is very difficult if the plants are 30 meters high. I'm
exactly. That is so true. Yeah, especially Astrocalyx, which is a huge tree. Yeah, I don't know if camera traps will even be possible to be loaded up there. Drones, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, in the future, hopefully we get to do some more studies on pollination syndromes in the Astronieae.
Cool.
Hopefully.
Wow, you're sitting on a treasure there. It's amazing. Yeah. More natural history work.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? I think we're good. We're like more than an hour now. And anyone who wants to reach out with questions could contact you with email. You shared your contact details.
Yep.
Yeah, it was an excellent talk. Thank you so much. It's like I'm looking forward to all the papers that are still coming up. It seems like you have a lot still that's coming up.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.